My name was Hassan. I was an Imam in Mecca, revered and steeped in a tradition that defined my very existence. For years, I led prayers, taught the Quran, and walked the narrow path of obedience, dutiful, disciplined, and yet lost. In a city suffocated by expectations and devotion, my soul wrestled in silence, burdened by a hollow ache I dared not voice. I thought serving God was the pinnacle of purpose, until that pivotal moment when everything shattered. One fateful pilgrimage changed my life forever. An accident left me suspended between worlds, spiraling into darkness. In that void, amidst flickering shadows, he appeared before me, Jesus, radiant and alive. His voice pierced the silence, an echo of love in a desolate wasteland, unveiling a truth that transcended religion. It was more than a revelation. It was an awakening, a confrontation with the very fabric of my faith. I saw the veils of deceit draping over humanity, a spiritual warfare intertwined with our core beliefs. I realized the system I dedicated my life to was not a beacon of divine truth, but a prison of control. In that desert of despair, I understood that the greatest chains are worn within the heart. The struggle was not mine alone. It mirrored a global crisis of faith, where many are trapped, seeking the light. Emerging from that veil of death, I became a man transformed, yet thrust into chaos. Rejected by my family and community, labeled a heretic for daring to embrace the light I discovered, I stood at a crossroads of identity. The guilt of abandonment weighed heavily on my spirit, even as my longing for authentic connection grew stronger. I felt the urgent call to seek the truth beyond the confines of my past. As I delved into the pages of the Bible, a renewed peace enveloped me. In the shadows of secrecy, I found a community that welcomed my brokenness and nurtured my burgeoning faith. The more I learned, the deeper my calling became. This was not just about my journey. It was a divine mandate to share my story, a warning of the freedom that awaits the lost. What lies ahead is not just a personal testimony, but a humble plea to those who wander, just as I once did. Join me as I journey from the depths of despair to the heights of redemption. For what I have to share could change your life forever. Before we dive in, I invite you to leave a comment below. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I want to connect with you. And if you too feel that stirring inside, a yearning for truth, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. If you love Jesus, this is where your journey to revelation begins. The truth is alive, and it's waiting for you. I stood in the heart of Mecca, a city imbued with spiritual significance, where the air was thick with reverence and devotion. As an Imam, I dedicated my life to serving the faith I had grown up with, enveloped by the vibrant sounds of worship and the melodic calls to prayer echoing from nearby mosques. The streets were bustling with worshippers, each person absorbed in their religious practices, their eyes reflecting a shared belief in a higher purpose. Yet, beneath the surface of this fervent devotion, I sensed an unyielding pressure to conform to tradition, a pressure that began to erode my own spiritual peace. Years of teaching the Quran had trained me to uphold values and traditions that were non-negotiable in my community. I loved my role, guiding others in their faith and being a part of something so grand. But as I stood amid the throngs of believers, a quiet discontent began to fester within me. I began experiencing an unsettling sense of emptiness during my prayers. Each day felt heavier, each recitation less meaningful, as if I were speaking words that no longer resonated with the heart of my spirit. I found myself questioning whether there was more to faith than rigid adherence to doctrine. That internal conflict reached a breaking point after a harrowing experience, an accident that nearly cost me my life. One moment, I was driving through the familiar streets of Mecca, and the next, everything went black. The world faded away, and in that moment of darkness, I was transported to a boundless desert, engulfed by an intense light. It was here, that I encountered Jesus, radiating love and acceptance that pierced through the layers of fear and doubt I had accumulated over the years. His presence filled me with a profound sense of peace, and as I stood before him, I felt an overwhelming urge to listen. During our encounter, Jesus revealed hidden truths that shattered my understanding of faith and spirituality. He unveiled the facade of deception woven by the elite, the manipulation of faith as a tool for control. In that divine light, I saw the spiritual war being fought, the manipulation that ripped apart communities and sowed division among believers. The visions poured forth, showing me how our collective fear and ignorance had been exploited to maintain power. In that moment, I realized that my devotion had been directed more toward tradition than toward the essence of truth. The revelation awakened me from my stupor, compelling me to examine everything I had been taught. As the light began to fade and I returned to consciousness, a sense of urgency settled within me. I knew that I could no longer remain silent about the truths I had encountered. The fear of losing my identity as a respected Imam gnawed at me. I knew that speaking out would fracture the very fabric of my life. Yet I felt a divine responsibility to not only embrace my awakening, but to share it with others who were lost in the same deception. There was a fire within me that could not be contained. This fight for truth was now my mission, and I could feel the call of those who would need guidance in the darkness that lay ahead. I stood in the heart of Mecca, a revered Imam respected for my wisdom and discipline. My name is Hassan, and for 40 years I had devoted my life to guiding my community in faith. I was known for my unwavering adherence to Islamic doctrines, but beneath that esteemed exterior lay a profound emptiness. The calls to prayer resonated through the bustling streets, filling the air with reverence, yet I often felt disconnected from the very God I preached about. It was a disconnect that gnawed at my soul, a feeling that something essential was missing in my spiritual journey. As I led prayers and discussed the intricacies of Islamic teachings, I couldn't ignore the growing void within me. Days turned into nights where I would lie awake, consumed by questions that had no answers. Did my devotion mean anything if I didn't feel a genuine connection? The rituals I once found comfort in began to feel like burdens, repetitive motions devoid of spiritual depth. I sought solace in prayer, hoping for enlightenment, yet instead I faced an uncomfortable silence. I longed for a relationship with God that felt alive, vibrant, and personal, not one confined by rules and expectations. That emotional turmoil came to a head one fateful night when everything changed. I was driving home, wrestling with the familiar thoughts of doubt, when, in an instant, chaos reigned. An accident left me unconscious, suspended between life and death. It was during that time that I found myself in a vast, dark expanse, a surreal desert void of sound and sensation. In that depth of darkness, a blinding light emerged, illuminating the emptiness around me. It was then that I saw Jesus, radiating love and compassion in a way I had never known, a presence that felt familiar yet foreign at once. As I stood before him, waves of understanding washed over me. He revealed truths hidden beneath the surface of our beliefs, showing me the manipulation that lies behind the spiritual war we face. I began to grasp the hidden agendas of the elite, how they exploit faith for power and deepen divisions among us. The enormous weight of the world's deception was unveiled, and I knew I had been a part of it, unwittingly upholding barriers that prevented authentic connection with God. It was a stark revelation, thrilling yet terrifying, shattering my previous understanding of spirituality. Returning to consciousness, I awakened with more than just my life. I carried a divine mandate. Filled with urgency, I realized it was my responsibility to share the revelations I had received. I could not continue my life as an imam without embracing the deeper truths I had encountered. Still, the fear of losing my community and my standing loomed large. I wrestled with the reality that this awakening would position me against the very structures I had spent my life upholding. Would I have the courage to face the potential repercussions of speaking out? As those questions consumed me, I knew the journey ahead would demand everything I had. In the depths of my being, I felt the pull of truth urging me forward into the unknown, to confront the shadows head-on and seek a path that was truly enlightening. As I participated in prayers, the familiar rhythms of devotion that once filled me with purpose began to feel increasingly hollow. My name is Hassan, and for years I held the role of an Imam in Mecca, a life that many around me would envy. Yet, in the midst of reverence, where the air was thick with faith, I felt a gnawing emptiness deep within. Each prayer session became a struggle to connect with the divine, and I couldn't ignore the silent doubts creeping into my consciousness. It was as if I were reciting lines from a script I no longer believed in. During these moments of supposed connection with God, unsettling dreams would plague my nights. They were vivid and disorienting, challenging everything I had accepted as truth. I'd find myself caught in scenarios involving the sacred and profane, where familiar figures morphed into unsettling shadows. Each dream left me feeling more troubled, awakening suspicions that the religious structure I served might not be a divine revelation but rather a tool of control wielded by unseen hands. These thoughts churned within me like a tempest, igniting a battle between my ingrained beliefs and the burgeoning awareness that something was very wrong. As I grappled with this discord, the dreams became more frequent and intense. I found myself exploring familiar environments, mosques filled with worshippers, but they morphed into overwhelming scenes of chaos, where faith collided with manipulation. I couldn't help but wonder, were we mere puppets of an elite class serving a hidden agenda? The weight of these revelations pressed down on me, and I realized that this was more than just a personal crisis. I was caught in a spiritual war that transcended my individual struggles. Each night, these unsettling visions intensified my desire to seek the truth, even as they instilled fear of what I might uncover. Compelled to understand more, I began to question the foundational teachings that had shaped my life. The very tenets I had spent years teaching now felt suffocating, constraining my spirit. I started to seek solace in texts outside the Quran, examining perspectives that diverged from my upbringing. The more I learned, the more I felt drawn toward an awakening that was both exhilarating and terrifying. I began engaging with concepts that challenged my understanding of spirituality and the societal structures built around it. I couldn't ignore the growing awareness that our collective faith could sometimes serve as a mechanism for control, rather than a genuine connection to God. Each revelation felt like a puzzle piece falling into place, exposing deeper layers of deception. I found myself exploring the connections between my personal faith journey and broader societal issues. Wars fueled by religious fervor, technology used to manipulate beliefs, and leaders who exploited faith for power. It was a revelation that struck me like a lightning bolt. I began to see the interconnectedness of our spiritual battles. This awakening ignited a flame within me, urging me to share my insights, to challenge the deception that held so many in chains. I could feel the weight of my responsibility growing, knowing that I had to confront the shadows, to find a way to guide others toward the truth I had begun to grasp with both fear and hope. After a serious accident during a pilgrimage, I slipped into a coma that felt like stepping into a formless void. My name is Hassan, and I had devoted my life to my work as an imam. The pilgrimage was meant to deepen my connection with God, but instead it thrust me into a transformative experience that altered my perspective forever. The last thing I remembered before the darkness consumed me was the sound of prayer and a feeling of being embraced by my community. But in the depths of that unconscious state, reality as I knew it began to unravel. In this surreal landscape of darkness, I found myself in a vast desert, isolated and stripped of all my earthly ties. The silence was deafening, yet my heart raced with uncertainty and fear. It was during this unsettling stillness that I first encountered Jesus. His light shattered the shadows around me, illuminating the void and dispelling the darkness that had surrounded my understanding of faith. As he approached, I felt warmth and compassion envelop me, unlike anything I had ever known during my years of teaching and praying. There were no words exchanged, but the connection was profound and immediate. It filled the emptiness I had carried for so long. In that divine encounter, revelations poured into me like a rushing river. Jesus unveiled the hidden truths of the spiritual war that permeated our existence, revealing how institutionalized religions often served as tools of manipulation rather than pure pathways to God. I saw visions of how the elite wielded power, twisting faith systems to maintain control over the masses. Each insight pierced through my former beliefs, exposing the deceptions perpetuated not only in my life, but in the lives of many who were unwittingly shackled by fear and ignorance. It was a moment of awakening, of understanding that the very foundations I had relied upon were often more about obedience than authentic connection. As each revelation unfolded, I felt the weight of responsibility settling upon my shoulders. The truth about these deceptions forced me to confront the uncomfortable reality that my role as an imam had been enmeshed in a system that often stifled genuine spirituality. I could see how wars and divisions sprang from these manipulated beliefs, how leaders leveraged faith for their agendas, driving wedges between communities and promoting hatred instead of love. The urgency of what I was witnessing was overwhelming, stirring a deep desire within me to share these revelations with others who were also trapped in the shadows of misunderstanding. With this newfound knowledge, time felt both fleeting and infinite. I knew that my awakening was not just a personal experience. It was an invitation to participate in a larger movement toward truth. As I returned to consciousness, the world came back into focus, yet everything had changed. Those moments in the desert with Jesus transformed my understanding of faith, compelling me to embrace a mission grounded in love and truth. Yet, as I navigated the complexities of this new reality, the memories of my old life clashed with the urgency of my new purpose. I felt the pull to fight against the very system I'd once served, to awaken others to the potential for liberation from the deception that had held us captive. My journey was only beginning, and the path before me was laden with both hope and uncertainty. Upon awakening, the world felt foreign and fractious. My name is Hassan, and having once been a respected Imam in Mecca, I found myself grappling with an avalanche of rejection. My miraculous encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience had changed everything, yet it had also unleashed a storm of accusations and betrayal from my family and community. I could feel the weight of their disapproval like a steel shackle around my heart, tightening with every step I took into the world. How could I explain the profound truth that had been revealed to me? The initial moments of clarity after my awakening quickly gave way to confusion and despair. As I walked the streets of my neighborhood, I was met not with warmth, but with cold stares and whispered judgments. The very people who had once looked to me for guidance now saw me as a heretic, a traitor who had dared to betray the faith that bound us. The weight of their words cut deeper than any blade, wrapping me in a suffocating veil of guilt. I found myself torn between the lessons I had imparted and the new foundational truths Jesus had shown me. Each moment felt like a painful reminder of my perceived failure to uphold the beliefs I had once cherished. Loneliness clawed at my spirit as an intense ache filled my heart. I missed the sense of belonging that had defined my life for so long, yet I was acutely aware that my longing was not simply for acceptance, but for true connection. I was eager to explore the faith I had found in Jesus, a faith that radiated love and acceptance but came at a massive cost. The conflict within me spiraled, battling guilt for leaving my roots against the unquenchable desire to pursue this spiritual awakening. It felt like standing on a precipice, knowing that taking a step back might bring comfort, yet feeling pulled toward a front that promised liberation. As days turned into weeks, the turmoil intensified. The silence surrounding me grew heavier, pressing down with an almost tangible force. I often sat alone, consumed by memories of prayer and preaching, reflecting on how I had dedicated my life to serving a community that now viewed me with disdain. This was akin to a war waged within my heart, one where the deception of false loyalty clashed with the burning truth of the divine love I had encountered. The urge to share my experience with others battled against the fear of further isolation. I was increasingly aware that I was not just fighting for my spiritual awakening. I was compelled to share these revelations in the hope of liberating others trapped in the same cycle. Even with the rising tide of adversity, I felt embers of hope flickering inside me, urging me to forge a new path. My journey, I realized, wasn't meant to be walked in solitude. There were others, silent voices like mine, longing to escape the constraints of a faith that had become synonymous with fear and control. I could almost hear the murmurs of their suffering, individuals taken advantage of by the elite, locked in a spiritual war waged not only against faith, but against the very essence of humanity. I began seeking these kindred spirits, hoping to create a sanctuary for open dialogue and healing amid the turmoil we faced. As I stepped further into this mission, I felt the urgency to act surging within me. I knew that the path ahead would not be easy. The risk of encountering backlash from my community loomed large, but the potential to awaken others to the truth, that was a battle worth fighting. I could no longer remain silent because the deception that threatened to choke the spiritual life out of so many demanded attention. With each new encounter, each shared story, I felt the community of awakening souls begin to assemble, and it became increasingly clear that this journey was not just mine, it was ours. A shared commitment to transcend the shadows of the past and step into the light of truth. In my secret quest for truth, I found myself compelled to explore areas of faith I had been taught to shun. My name is Hassan, and I had once proudly declared my faith as an Imam in Mecca. But after my encounter with Jesus, the foundation of my beliefs began to quake beneath me. I felt a surge of curiosity, urging me to seek the truth hidden beneath the layers of tradition I'd long adhered to. An alarming sense of urgency pushed me to pursue answers, prompting me to read the Bible, a book I had only ever brushed aside as foreign and misleading. As I opened the pages, something ignited inside me. The words felt alive, resonating deeply within my spirit. Each verse I read introduced new ideas that challenged the constructs I had built my life upon. Stories of love, sacrifice, and redemption unfolded before me, painting a picture of hope that seemed distant in my past. As I continued to read, I was reminded that I was seeking the truth, not only for myself but for others who might still be trapped in the chains of deception. I particularly connected with testimonies from individuals who had faced their own spiritual wars. Listening to their struggles, their awakenings, I felt an incredible sense of solidarity. They too had grappled with the fear of losing everything familiar, and yet in that moment of vulnerability, they emerged, transformed. But as each day passed, the fear of losing my family and community loomed larger. Rejection seemed inevitable, and I often found myself standing at the crossroads, my heart yearning for the acceptance of those I loved, yet my spirit longing for the awakening I had experienced. I felt like a tightrope walker, balancing between two worlds that could not coexist. Every time I stepped further into this new understanding, I was mindful of the looming consequences. The voices of doubt whispered their foreboding echoes, reminding me that my transition into this new faith might cause a rift that could never be healed. Through this journey, I discovered a clandestine Christian community that accepted me with open arms. This small group of believers became my refuge, a safe harbor where discussions flowed freely and love was unconditional. They welcomed me without judgment, understanding that my journey was unlike their own, yet rooted in a common purpose. As we shared meals, prayers, and stories, I felt a renewed sense of peace enveloping me. Here, amidst the warmth of acceptance, the heavy cloak of shame and fear seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of belonging that I had long sought but never found. In their presence, the walls I had built began to crumble. I realized that this community, though small and hidden, represented a larger truth, a defiance against the spiritual war that sought to stifle our voices. Together, we began to explore the depth of our beliefs and the implications of our experiences. I found solace in the knowledge that unity amid diversity could challenge the hidden agendas of those who sought to dominate our spirits. My awakening became intertwined with theirs, fueling a collective sense of purpose. This was no longer just my journey. It was ours, and as we ventured deeper into the waters of revelation, the stirring urgency to spread the truth grew stronger within me. Realizing that my personal transformation was also a call to action, I grappled with the weight of new responsibilities. My name is Hassan, and for years I served as an Imam in Mecca, upholding traditions that had once felt completely right. But since my encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience, everything in my life had shifted dramatically. I felt an overwhelming urge to share the freedom I had discovered, to expose the hidden agendas that had shaped my past and manipulated my understanding of faith. The fear of losing my connection to my community loomed large, but the call to speak out was too powerful to ignore. With each passing day, the internal conflict between my old life and the new truth I had embraced grew more intense. I could no longer stand by silently while so many suffered under the weight of deception. The spiritual war I'd come to understand was a war against the very foundations of manipulation, where the elite orchestrated narratives to control the masses, masking their intentions behind the guise of faith. I knew that sharing my story would undoubtedly lead to backlash, perhaps even ostracization from my family and community, but I felt an urgency to act. I had to reveal the truths that had been hidden, truths that could liberate others as they had liberated me. It was hard to contain my excitement, mingled with fear, as I began crafting my message. I sought ways to reach out, delicately trying to navigate the boundaries between my past and my emerging faith. I immersed myself in discussions with those who understood my struggles, whispering truths in the shadows as I sought to create a space for others who felt similarly lost. Each conversation felt like a small victory, igniting a hope that maybe I wasn't alone in this awakening. I could feel the warmth of the community that was forming, a community united by shared experiences and the courage to confront the deception that had long silenced us. I spent hours poring over scripture, drawing inspiration from Jesus' teachings, gaining further insight into the larger implications of my faith. His words echoed in my mind, reminding me that truth simply cannot be contained within the walls of tradition. I began to develop a sense of urgency that propelled me forward, pushing me to confront my own fears and set aside the guilt of leaving my old life. I had been called to share the revelation of love and hope, not just to lead myself into a new spiritual existence, but to ripple that awakening through the lives of others still enmeshed in the spiritual war. As I prepared to break my silence, I felt the stakes rising. Voices of fear and doubt whispered doubts again. What if my family rejected me entirely? What if my community turned on me? The thought sent shivers down my spine. But I knew the risk of remaining silent was far greater. I realized I wasn't just fighting for my own awakening. I was also standing up for those suffocated by the confines of deceptive narratives. The courage woven into my heart told me I needed to forge ahead. With every step I took toward this new purpose, I felt the weight of the truth lifting me, and I knew it was time to let my voice be heard, even in the face of fear and uncertainty. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, and yet I could feel the pulse of hope motivating me to step into the light. In a symbolic act of bravery, I departed from my home, leaving behind Mecca, the city where I had devoted my life to faith as an imam. My name is Hassan, and for years I had lived within the confines of tradition, but after my encounter with Jesus, everything changed. This wasn't just a physical journey, it was a profound metamorphosis of my spirit. The freedom I had attained felt exhilarating yet terrifying, a new identity blossoming within me, formed from the ashes of my former beliefs. I knew that embracing this new path meant stepping into the unknown, but I felt compelled to follow where the truth led me. As I walked away from the familiar streets of my past, I could feel the weight of all I was leaving behind: my family, my community, the role I had played for so long. Each step felt heavy with the realization of what lay ahead. The possibility of rejection, but also the chance to reach those who, like I once was, felt lost. I wanted to share the revelation I had received, to impart the love and acceptance Jesus had shown me. The urgency of my mission surged within me, fueling my determination to speak out against the hidden agendas that had tormented countless souls in the name of faith. The memories of my past life haunted me, yet they were also a source of strength. I recalled the countless times I had stood before my congregation, guiding them through prayers and teachings, all in the name of God. But now, those teachings felt tainted. It was as if I had been participating in a spiritual war where deception reigned supreme. I remembered the faces of those who had sought answers from me, the desperation in their eyes. I wished to reach out to them now, to tell them there was a truth beyond the confines of tradition that could liberate their spirits. As I settled into my new identity, I found solace in the company of those who, like me, had sought the truth beyond the superficial layers of religious obligation. I began to speak to groups of people, sharing my journey and the remarkable transformation I had undergone. The more I shared, the more I witnessed others awaken to their own struggles. My heart swelled with hope as I saw lives change before my eyes, as individuals began to understand the manipulative tactics of the elite that had kept them bound. I knew that together, we could challenge the narratives that had sown division and fear in our communities. Each conversation became a catalyst for deeper exploration. As we dissected the intricacies of our experiences, it became evident that the spiritual war we faced was not just personal. It was a collective struggle against the deceptions that permeate our society. The revelations of Jesus illuminated the path forward, a journey that called for courage and solidarity in the fight. I understood that my mission was not solely about my awakening. It was about forging a community founded on love, acceptance, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. With renewed vigor, I felt driven to continue this path, knowing that the battle for awakening had only just begun. Years later, I found myself in a new home, far from the familiar streets of Mecca where I had once served as an imam. My name is Hassan, and the path I walked after my transformational encounter with Jesus has been anything but ordinary. I now dedicate my life to inspiring others to seek their own truth and freedom. The revelation I experienced during my near-death encounter has become a beacon for those who feel lost, much like I once did. I've witnessed firsthand how a single story can ignite a spark in someone's heart, pushing them to question the societal and spiritual deceptions they've accepted for far too long. Living in this new chapter brings both joy and a constant reminder of the journey I undertook. I remember the fear and uncertainty that accompanied my decision to abandon everything I had known. As I stood on that precipice, I realized it was no longer just about me. It was about forging connections and spreading the message of awakening. Each testimony shared, whether from a close friend or a stranger, reveals the common thread of fear and disillusionment seeping through the fabric of our lives. Fear that binds us to the elite's hidden agendas and manipulation. I feel honored to share my story, but there's still a weight on my heart. My family remains a haunting shadow. The ache of separation from my family is profound. Even as I create this new life, I hold on to hope that one day they might understand my journey. I often reflect on the transitions they must have faced since my departure, sensing the confusion and hurt my absence likely caused. I want to show them that the truth I embrace doesn't negate the love we shared. Rather, it expands it. After all, Jesus taught us love above all else. The internal struggle I experience, torn between my unwavering commitment to my new faith and the love I have for my roots, pushes me to carry on even in the face of isolation. As I step into each new day, I'm continually reminded of the spiritual war that surrounds us. The battles are not merely external, they are also deeply internal, forcing us to confront our fears and prejudices. The stories I hear from those looking for their truth, stories filled with pain, doubt, and the discovery of deception, fuel my resolve. I see how systemic manipulation has distorted our understanding of faith, creating barriers where there should be bridges. It's a relentless battle, trying to break through the walls of indifference and fear, yet I feel a strange sense of purpose fulfilling me as I engage with others on this journey. My mission to share my testimony feels more urgent than ever. Each conversation, each individual I meet, represents an opportunity to enlighten someone else trapped in the cycle of spiritual deception. I often recall the moment when I met Jesus, the warmth of his presence, and the clarity he brought to my existence. I strive to be that spark for others, lighting the way toward their awakenings. Even amid uncertainty, the freedom and revelations I've experienced are worth fighting for, worth sharing. I know that change doesn't come easily, but I believe that as we unite in pursuit of truth, we can challenge the very structures that seek to suppress our spirits. The journey is ongoing, and I'm ready to face whatever comes next. The moral and central theme of my journey is this: while religion can bind us, the truth found in Jesus offers a path to liberation that I never knew was possible. My name is Hassan, and for years I stood as an Imam in Mecca, a city revered for its spiritual significance. My life revolved around guiding others and adhering to the principles I had been taught. Yet beneath that surface of devotion, I often felt a growing discomfort, a profound sense of emptiness that gnawed at my heart. Each prayer, each sermon felt increasingly disconnected from my spirit, leaving me questioning the very faith I had dedicated my life to. This internal struggle reached a pivotal moment during a pilgrimage, a journey meant to deepen my faith. It was supposed to be a time of reflection and closeness to God, but a serious accident left me in a coma. In those dark hours, I experienced an awakening that shook the very foundations of my beliefs. It was during this near-death experience that I encountered Jesus. His presence was like a brilliant light piercing through the shadows of doubt that had overwhelmed me. In that divine encounter, I was shown revelations that enlightened my understanding of my world, truths about the spiritual war being waged not just within my heart, but across the entire landscape of humanity. Through Jesus, I saw the hidden agendas deployed by powerful elites who manipulated religion to maintain control and instill fear among the masses. The realization that many served a system built on deception stunned me. I understood that the religious structures I had revered often perpetuated social divisions and strained our connection with one another and with God. It was a painful truth to confront, recognizing that what I had once seen as unwavering faith was clouded by manipulation and hypocrisy. Yet, within that pain lay an opportunity for awakening, a chance to break free from the chains of the past and embrace a new life filled with purpose. As I emerged from my coma, I felt an immense responsibility to share these revelations. The truth that had been gifted to me needed to reach others, particularly those caught in the web of tradition who had yet to experience their own awakenings. My heart ached for those who were still trapped by despair and fear, navigated by a spiritual war they didn't even recognize. I thought of my previous congregation, of the faces that once looked to me for guidance, and I knew deep down that I could no longer teach the same old lessons. Instead, I was called to guide others toward an understanding that fostered love, acceptance, and liberation. Each day since my awakening has been filled with both urgency and joy, as I sought to reach out to the lost. I immersed myself in discussions with those who questioned their beliefs, urging them to seek the truth buried beneath the layers of traditional dogma. I witnessed people coming alive when they began to recognize the manipulation of their own faiths. It became clear to me that this work, the act of revealing deeper truths, was not only a calling but also a lifeline in the fight against deception. Even as I embraced this mission, I held on to hope for reconciliation with my family, desiring to bridge the gap created by my transformation. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with challenges, Yet within it lay the potential to ignite a broader awakening, a chance to reclaim the love and unity that is often lost in the noise of division. Now that you've journeyed through my story, I must ask you something profound and personal. Have you ever found yourself at a crossroads, where the weight of your beliefs felt suffocating, yet the yearning for truth pulled you in an unfamiliar direction? In the depths of my near-death experience, I glimpsed a world that transcended the limitations of tradition and doctrine. I saw how many of us are caught in a tangled web of deception, where faith is weaponized, used as a tool of control by those in power. But this awakening taught me that there is a divine love that calls us into light, a force urging us to break free from the chains that bind our hearts. I stand before you transformed, but make no mistake, this transformation ignited a fire within me. It is a call to action, not only for myself, but for all who feel lost in the shadows of confusion. You too are part of this cosmic struggle as we navigate a spiritual warfare that is very much alive in our world today. Your voice matters, your experiences matter, and together we can shine a light on the hidden truths that have kept us in bondage. I implore you to reflect. What truths have been hidden from you? What experiences have reshaped your understanding of faith? I invite you to share your story in the comments. Your insights could inspire someone else on their path toward awakening. If your heart resonates with this message, I urge you, don't leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond and hitting that notification bell. Each subsequent video carries more revelations that could aid you in your journey to understanding and liberation. Your subscription not only supports this community, but also makes you a part of this vital conversation seeking to reclaim our spiritual autonomy. In our next video, we will explore another powerful testimony from someone who found redemption in embracing the teachings of Jesus amidst their darkest hour, an experience that challenged everything they once believed. We're diving deep, uncovering layers of truth that many fear to explore. Thank you for taking this journey with me. I'm Hassan, and I want you to remember, in the quest for truth, we are never truly alone. Let us illuminate the shadows together.